This is the Creative Minds podcast. So we're back with another episode of the Creative Minds podcast. It made sense after doing part one with Adam Regan. You probably saw in the last episode. He's been a key influential individual within Birmingham's nightlife over the years with brands like Left Foot and running iconic venue Hare Hounds in King's Heath for the last 19 years.
It's coming up to 19
years. So the last episode we were discussing everything from a bit of debauchery in the student years, obviously the start of Left Foot, and then obviously the venue that you had in Moseley. So I suppose it only made sense to give Hare Hounds its own dedicated episode. So just before we begin and get onto the nitty gritty of the venue, any subscribes to the YouTube channel, any likes, comments, engagement, always greatly appreciated. Obviously, we're an independent podcast, so yeah, any support is greatly appreciated to help us keep going as long as possible. So, have you been?
I've been all right. Yeah. It's been about a few weeks, hasn't it?
But yeah. It's been a hectic few weeks, I imagine, for the both of us. How was your August bank holiday weekend?
It was okay. I mean, it's never the best one for us. Thinking back, was the weather all right? I think it was more a daytime thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did, on the bank holiday Sunday, we did like a daytime party. I think we were finished by 12, 1 o'clock, which is quite early for us. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Sometimes it's not always a bad thing, is it? If you have really good trade in the day and you think, oh, nice change, actually not having
it's a lot less stress.
Till 4 a.m.
Yeah, the staff prefer it. You spend less money on security. You know, it makes a lot more sense, really. But I think there's still... although some demographics like the daytime, some demographics still prefer that kind of going out at 11 o'clock and being out till 3 or 4.
But it's 11 a.m. until 11 a.m. the next day. So, well, sometimes, not always. So, correct me if I'm wrong, and obviously don't quote me. I was doing a bit of research, and I think we may have mentioned it in the previous episode with Tom Short has mentioned to me how it came about. Obviously, it wasn't the Bull's Head in Moseley. I believe it was King's Heath. It came up just in a random conversation. It was up for grabs, and you were just kind of like spontaneously, let's just give it a go. Is that true?
Not quite. No. Basically,
cheers, Tom. Thank you for the great research.
I was running the Bull's Head, and I'd been involved with a festival called Sound Station about a year or so before with a couple of guys called Nick and Tat, and they were involved with a company called Big Cat. They ran a company called Big Cat, and they said, I think they were just in the Bull's Head one night, and they said, have you seen that the Hare Hounds in King's Heath is on the market? They're looking for someone to take over. And I was like, I hadn't seen. And he said, well, should we put a business plan together and go for it? And I was like, King's Heath, don't know. I'd grown up in King's Heath and been schooled in King's Heath and always knew the Hare Hounds, but it had got a reputation for being quite a dive, quite a rough pub.
You've turned it round then, since.
Yeah, and still is. So we got a business plan together, spent a couple of days together getting a business plan, and they were like, what you do musically, that could really work there. There's a big room, 250 cap. So we put a plan together, and we went in against, I think, another couple of lads that were looking to do a similar thing musically, and then there was a Chinese buffet, eat as much as you can buffet, that had gone in for it, and. Yeah, we got the lease and got some investment, spent a couple of $100,000 kind of doing it up and making it a venue again properly. We it had carpets all through the venue and in the front bar and the back bar full of fruit machines, full of screens for the racing and the football. So we just stripped
Phoenix Nights kind of vibe.
A bit Phoenix Nights, bit Weatherspoons.
My kind of vibe, to be fair.
And it was
social club.
Yeah, and it was pre-smoking ban as well, so it was just thick with smoke. You'd walk in and it'd just be like a thick sort of wall of smoke. All the walls were kind of nicotine yellow. And there's, as you probably know, there's loads of beautiful tiles, listed tiles in the front bar and in the lobby, and they were just thick with tar. So we spent a bit of time cleaning it, redecorating it, investing in the kind of putting sound in the venue, and opened, and it was popular, definitely, but there was still a bit of trepidation about King's Heath and what people thought about it. So It took a while.
What was the general perception? And so you're talking now, not in years, my mental math.
So 2007,
2007,
we opened in
yeah.
2000, I think April 2007. I'd say for that first year, it did okay. We had some decent gigs. I called on my kind of contacts really, so I managed to get Giles and Scruff and Norman J and people like that I'd worked with for years. They came and played, but we hadn't really got a reputation as a live touring venue. So we had a lot of local live bands and a few different brands that were doing things, but we started putting on more and more live stuff. And then I think the big break for us happened when I double booked the venue. So Capsule, who Lisa, who runs Lisa, who runs Supersonic, she'd booked the venue, and I realised I'd double booked it, and I was like, oh God, that horrible feeling when you've made a mistake. This was pre-Google Calendar. This was when I was writing everything down. And she was like, why don't you use that junk room that's like along the corridor? And I was like, one that's full of like Guinness hats and, you know, old merch and sort of old glasses and stuff and dust. And she was like, yeah, let's. And I was like, okay. So Warren from Urban Audio, who does all our sound, he came with me and we cleared it all out. And we threw a sound system in there, some basic lights, and Lisa did a party in there, and it was great. I think it was a live show.
So a mistake ended up actually turning.
A mistake ended up into us applying for the license to get it as a proper venue, and kitting it all out, putting a bar in, and yeah, that was venue 2. So that was the turning point. That's when it started to make money. So we could put 2 shows on at the same time, and they could be totally different. You could have a folk gig on in one room and a drum and bass gig in the other. It just didn't matter. It didn't have to be linked in any way.
That's still how it's laid out now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Room 1 and room 2.
Yeah, room 1 and room 2. So that was the turning point. And then I think Matt Beck was doing food at the venue with Carl Finn. They were doing a thing called the Soul Food Project. And I just really liked Matt and knew he'd been doing some This Is Tomorrow gigs at venues like the Yardbird. Was it the Yardbird? The Yardbird and Island Bar. And he tried one gig at the Hare. And it was really cool. It was all that really cool indie stuff that I knew nothing about. And he did a gig, went really well. And then I think the food side of things was going okay, but they weren't really making much money out of it. And Matt was kind of looking to do some other stuff. And I was like, why don't you come on board with me and do like 20 hours a week, help him with programming, which he did. And then within a year, he was full time. And he just brought a whole fresh energy to us. You know, it was very much that kind of period where there were people like Joy Orbison and Julia Bashmore coming through, and that kind of future bassy house stand that was
timeless music.
Really, really cool. I liked it, but I hadn't booked any of those sort of people. And Matt was like, "Come on, let's book a few of those people." And then also we started booking people like Horsemeat Disco, and we were doing more housey kind of stuff. I'd gone more down the kind of live route and the kind of world music kind of route. And it was just popular. It started to do really well. And yeah, it just grew year on year. We got more and more bigger reputation for live stuff. And then the National started booking the venue.
Nice.
And that's where we are today, really. Is it like a really renowned sort of touring venue? So you get everything, like literally across the board. It can be anything.
Yeah, that's nice. Correct me if I'm wrong as well. Did Hare Hounds host UB40's first ever gig?
Yeah, we've got a PRS plaque on the side of the pub, actually. So it's 1979, I think. It was just a private party upstairs. So it wasn't, I don't think the Hare was like a proper touring venue. They were doing lots of live music, but I don't think it was the level that we're doing now. They were doing like locals, and UB40 weren't, they'd just formed. They'd been rehearsing for a year, I think, in Moseley. And they got booked to do a woman called Susie Varty. She had a birthday party, and she booked Susie Varty's party, and she booked.
Sounds like a good new brand.
Yeah.
To be fair.
And she booked them. And I think maybe she was mates with a couple of them, and she booked them to play.
Imagine telling your grandkids that, like, I was the first person to UB40.
Yeah,
you could go around the world and say that, and never mind just Birmingham.
I know. And it's mad, really, because it's had quite a, it's had a big knock-on effect over the years. We've got the plaque now, and the PRS came and did a ceremony when they unveiled it, and UB40 did a gig. That's
a nice touch.
Yeah, so they've done. I think UB40 played 3 times since I've had it. The first time they played, and they came and did 1 in 10. They did Signing Off, start to finish, which is one of my all-time favourite albums. So that was incredible. Then they came back for PRS, and then they came back again. But yeah, it just started a long kind of relationship with them. Brian Travers, who was unfortunately passed away a few years ago, was their saxophonist, but he was a regular, became good friends. I'd known Jimmy Brown for years anyway through my friend Nick Colgan. So it just became really kind of, they became part and very much part of the success story of the new Hare Hounds, even though they'd been,
I suppose it's nice because you've retained, from what I've seen every time I've been there, I've been lucky to play there a few times over the years. I've been there as a punter. Is you've retained a lot of that heritage and culture, but also brought in the new school aspect as well. You haven't lost that character, which I'm.
No, well, that's a lot to do with the kind of Grade 2 listing of the building. So even if we wanted to, which we wouldn't,
I was going to say, would you?
You have to preserve all those tiles and the original woodwork and a lot of the kind of the look of the outside of that very traditional black and white kind of red brick pub. Much to our kind of cost really, because whenever we do things, it costs a lot of money because you have to do it right. You have to use the right materials and have to run everything through the listing people. But it does. It's got that kind of iconic feel.
Very different from any other venue I've been to.
Yeah, there were a few. Yeah, there were a few similar sort of places in London, and I always loved them when you go to these old pubs, and then upstairs there'd be this little club space with a great sound system. So they were kind of inspirational for me. And but yeah, I think it's really important that it retains that sort of that heritage feel, and people feel. There's a real ownership that from people from King's Heath and people beyond feel of the Hare. It's not just, we're the kind of stewards, if you like, of the building. And, I've had it for quite a long time, but it feels like a community place.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel very connected to it and a lot of ownership of it. And that's great, because it feels community-led.
I think it's really important, especially with the way the world is now, the way society, even in the UK, I think a lot of that community aspect has been lost.
Totally, yeah.
It's definitely important to retain that aspect.
Yeah, I think corporate culture has killed a lot of that.
We're having this conversation before the
Yeah.
podcast, but putting the world to rights before.
Yeah, I think people, and I feel like Birmingham in particular, they like to see people from Birmingham do well. I don't think, we have these big brands coming in, and some of them obviously do great. And in the club scene and the music scene, I feel a lot of the time they don't. People don't feel the same level of, like I just said, the ownership or connection. So for people that, I'm not saying everybody loves me, but I'm sure they don't. A lot of people in King's Heath think I'm a bit of a twat. But I think a lot of people like the fact that... we'll do it. No, don't do that. That would be awful. I think a lot of people like the fact that I live in King's Heath. I went to school in King's Heath.
It's genuine, isn't it?
I'm part of the culture and the community there, and I've stayed in the area. I spend a lot of my money in the area when I go out and eat and drink and support a lot of the local venues, and that's kind of a nice thing about places like the Hare that are owned by local people.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's certain instances you see where I think people, they come from wealth, come from privilege, they've got the capital behind them, and it's just pure culture vulture bandwagon. And that's when I think you see a lot of cases, people just assume you throw money at it, it sticks. I've seen so many cases fail because people invest in it for the wrong reasons. It's like you're not doing this because you actually care, you're doing it more just purely for financial gain.
Yeah.
Probably, there is cases where people, it does work because they're very powerful, they've got clout, they can swing certain decision making, but I think there's a lot of cases I've seen personally, not just even in Birmingham, but working in various different parts of hospitality and nightlife over the years, where a lot of the people that have done well, they haven't actually just kept throwing money at something. It's because people buy into what you're doing, because, like you say, it's organic from literally day one.
Yeah, I mean it has so many ups and downs. I think people look at the Hare now and think, it's really successful and you must be loaded and this and that. And you're like, God, if you only knew the times where we were struggling to kind of pay bills and, questioning whether we could handle the stress of it anymore. It's a very, you give your life, it becomes your life really. Yeah. And this is why I think when people have multiple venues, they lose some of that kind of individuality. It's like, even though I'm not behind the bar serving pints and I'm not the one that people come and see, they know that there's still that kind of feeling that it's run by somebody that is around and living in the area. And
that's why, to be honest, even though I'm not born and bred in Birmingham, even literally the majority of shows at Lab, I try to be a presence, not as in trying to be noticed, but even looking after the artist on the dance floor, speaking to punters, doing like a bit of everything, because I think that way then you've got a clear connection between who works at the venue. Because I find it a bit bizarre when you go to venues and you don't know who the artist liaison is, you don't know who the operations manager is, you don't know who the owner is, and I think that's the negative impact of corporate at times. Is you might have a venue in Birmingham, but then head office is in London, and they're calling the shots in London. So, well, guys, all due respect, you don't actually understand the city, understand the landscape, understand the culture, and that's when bad decision making happens. There's so many. Me and Shorters always have too many cooks in the kitchen, spoils the broth, and you've got so many people calling the shots and making decisions that you shouldn't really be making.
No, there's a few venues in Birmingham. I'm not going to name them, but where you feel like if you work at them, you don't get that quick answer, you don't get that response, and you don't get that sort of resolution to an issue. It kind of goes up the chain. It ends up various people have meetings about it, and then eventually 3-4 days later. Whereas at the Hare,
too late sometimes. A few days in this business, you know how quickly things move, and especially when it comes to booking artists, it's like we know how it works. You know, like we said previously, I'm not going to go on about agents. Again, there's good agents, bad agents, but you know, there's competition out there for bookings, not even just city to city, but worldwide. You know, the way they're trying to do the touring and logistics. So waiting even a couple of days, you need to be able to, you know, have that experience, discuss it as a team, and be able to make a quick, pragmatic decision instead of it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I know we are very good at, and when I say we, it's mainly Matt and Marta and Ted who are in the office, and they realise the importance of responding to emails quickly. You know, you might get that little window of 3 hours on a morning where an email goes out, "You interested in this show? Do you want to do this?" And you have to kind of be quick on it.
Competition, isn't there? They probably send that out to. I know you've got good relations.
Well,
with the venues. That's a reality.
But we will get offered shows, and if we don't act on it quickly, you'll lose them to someone else. And so you have to really be on it, and you also have to do a lot of that kind of checking in culture with agents. So Matt will be like, "Oh, I feel like I haven't spent enough time for a while just checking in with some key agents and going, what have you got coming up?" And he'll send out a couple of emails, and then someone will come back, "Oh yeah, I was thinking of getting in touch with you. We've got this tour," and we're like, that's exactly why you have to do that.
You think about a lot of their workloads. I mean, some of the agents, and particularly down in London, they work crazy.
Yeah, and they're not going to remember. They're not going to think about every person they've ever liked or got on with. You know,
when they've got big rosters, and like you say, it's not just people think sometimes, oh, it's Bristol, Birmingham, London. No, it's worldwide. It's a globalised business. So your level of workload is. Let's be completely honest. Birmingham, even though it's the second city, sometimes sadly, you know, compared to like Manchester, Bristol, you know, there's Newcastle.
It's not one of the
agenda,
we're not, and I think this is what some people don't understand about Birmingham. It is a really tough city to do what we do. You're not, you know, you've got London, Manchester, Bristol, Leeds, sometimes even Liverpool, Nottingham, Brighton, that get shows before they'll come to Birmingham. I mean, there's someone that keeps tagging us into every new kind of jazz, sort of cool, sort of London jazz act that we've booked in the past that then announces a new tour. So like people like Alpha Mist and Joe Armand-Jones, those are people that we've booked. They announce tours and they do London, Manchester, Bristol. And this one guy keeps tagging in Wino Brum, and he tags Left Foot. And it's kind of like, I get it, but it just, unfortunately, with certain tours now, is they just want to get in, do the three or four key shows, and then go to Europe, and then go to South America, and then go, you know, because those places they'll go and earn better money.
South America,
and
my experience.
And unfortunately, Birmingham it's a tough city for ticket sales. It doesn't sell as well as other cities. So even though people come and they love it and have a great experience at the Hare or, you know, Lab or wherever, you're still down the pecking order, and I think some people just don't get that. Like, well, with Birmingham, it's like, yeah, but it doesn't mean anything that we're the second biggest city.
Sometimes you've got to take the rose-tinted glasses off. Like I say, I'm passionate about the city, and I'm not even from here, and I can imagine there's probably elements of frustration at times because not just the fact you're born and bred, but the amount of blood, sweat and tears and passion you've invested since, you know, a good few years now, and there's certain action, you know, deep down, we could put on a great show. And sometimes it's like, I mean, sadly, there's cases where money talks, but then you're like, well, no, based on capacity, ticket sales, bar spend, you kind of have to hold back, and you're like, no, you know, can't justify it, and that's where it becomes a little bit no man's land. But Just going back slightly out of interest, with you saying you opened around 2007, great timing, obviously you weren't to know, just before the financial crash. What kind of impact did that have with the opening? Or?
Do you know what? I can't even remember.
No.
I suppose we had the first year where we opened, and I know we lost money. I know, like, even though we'd invested a couple of $100,000, we were 50 grand down in that first year, and it was like, right, we've got to really try and turn this around. And then was when we opened the second room, and things started to turn and lift. So I don't think it had a massive effect, because I feel like we started to gain traction and gain reputation. Unfortunately, as the Hare started to rise, the Bulls started to dip. So they were going in opposite directions, and for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, the Hare was doing well and growing, and the Bull was getting worse and worse in terms of financial.
Kind of, the one venue was semi-subsidised.
Yeah, I think because when we'd opened the Bull's Head, there wasn't really much competition for that sort of later night, small clubby kind of vibe. Whereas the Hare had 2 rooms, you could put on bigger names. It was only up the road. Moseley was kind of, as we talked about before, was kind of going downhill a bit. So yeah, it was the crash. I can't really remember.
It was interesting because I finished school in 2010, and that's when I started working in pubs. But the pub trade was still doing well, and that was just wet trade. The pub that worked to no food, I think they had karaoke, because like proper dregs kind of. All due respect, like the first pub I worked at was like I had thick skin by the time I left there. But when I was speaking to Will and Dee, especially Dee, with how long he's been in the game, and I was saying, well, out of interest, when the economy goes through the roller coaster moments, he says, mate, you'd be surprised, because even though, especially now, like the cost of living crisis, inflation, like people's salaries aren't necessarily matching everything else that's going up. When people have had a long week at work, they will find the money to go out. If you're offering a good experience and the product you're offering is, people will find the money. But obviously now, because people's purses are tighter, if your experience you're offering is very bog standard in terms of, like, the music, the hospitality, everything, security, then people will go and spend their money elsewhere. But he said you'd be surprised, even in like the massive financial crash, people just want to go out and party. And
they do, and
a long week at work, you don't just want to be sat in your gaff all weekend. I
think we've noticed that live music is still very strong, because you can't really recreate that in any other way. Watching online or listening to a record or a Spotify or whatever isn't the same as being in that room with 200 people that love that artist and the connection. It's, without wanting to sound too kind of woo, it's a bit spiritual, isn't it? It's like a bit like a church experience, like you go there and you're singing along, or you're enjoying the music and you're communing with your kind of people. We don't get, football obviously is another good example of that, but it just feels like those experiences can't be replicated by the internet. They're never the same.
That's why during COVID, like, I started to get a bit crackers after a while, because you're watching these live streams. I think I was saying at my mum's bed and breakfast in Shrewsbury at the time. I was going crackers. I thought I need to just get back into that environment. And like you say, it's even the social aspect, with even friends, like-minded people, and then the amount of new friends you meet on the dance floor, because you're all there for kind of like the same reason.
I think it's that connection is something that we all noticed during lockdown, like missed it. So I think that kind of live music experience is great, and I think because there are less venues in Birmingham now that offer that kind of great experience with great sound, production, hospitality in a nice place, you can get a nice pint. I think we've capitalised on that a little bit. It's like we get offered a lot of stuff. Our calendar now from sort of mid-September to Christmas is pretty much full. There's not many days where we haven't got a show, and a lot of them are 2 shows, 1 in each room.
No.
So we've kind of done well off the back of that. We've talked about it before, but the club thing is definitely struggling. There's not enough. I think haven't got enough young promoters that have got the cash to kind of risk, which is totally understandable. I think there's over reliance on those kind of older crowd, looking back at, golden areas of house, garage, whatever. There's a big reliance on that at the moment in the Birmingham club scene.
And they're married, settled down with kids, got responsibilities, but
you have to keep. Though I totally think there is a place for that. Very much so. We do a couple of great nights at the Heritages, particularly like Heritage Wobble. They do stuff together, Wax on that, and they are kind of looking back at those golden eras. But I think alongside those, you have to have young knights that are looking forward as well, because if you're just looking back all the time, you're not going to have any progress. So it's really important to have new artists, new DJs, new bands. But there's no new promoters. That's the problem.
The financial aspect is definitely a big point. I remember even when I was putting on 200 cap parties just before COVID. So by the time you've booked an artist, paid the agent fee, a lot of the time hotel, travel, rider, taking them out for dinner, venue hire, standard production, like you're already into a couple of thousand. And you know, unless you've got a business, I looked at the time. Obviously, I had a business partner. In the end, we ended up getting investment. But it's like most of the time I've worked at it, and to be honest, it is pretty simple. If you come from a privileged background financially, and say you can just go to parents, so have you got £5,000, £10,000? You don't have to sacrifice a percentage of your business. But most of the time, you can have a great idea. If you need investment, understandably, if someone's investing, you're going to have to give them a percentage of your business. But straight away, then it's like, well. It's just a little bit frustrating, but I think a lot of people don't realise the financial cost of even putting on just a standard party, like 200, 300. Never mind. Never mind going into your festival level where you're in for hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And like you say, nowadays, people's purses are tighter, and by the time you've paid your rent, all your overheads, had a normal life, and then you want to do that as a passion project. It's like sometimes it's the difference of if it doesn't pull off, how am I going to pay my rent?
I think there's too much at stake these days to do those, even the small parties. I think you've got venues like Pan and people that are promoting stuff there, like what's it called, Provida. They kind of do it with residents, and they've built those kind of parties. Seem to be the way to go now, because you're keeping your costs down by not booking expensive DJs, and you're building organically. I think
building a crew as well. That's one thing I've learned off Will in particular, and having kind of like your own identity sound-wise, but like I say, not relying so much on headline talent. If you've got a crew, you can all DJ, you're all pushing the brand, maybe even all putting a few quid in, so you're sharing the responsibility. There's less stress then, rather than it being on one or two people. And then just, I suppose, I think something in particular that not just sending for the younger generation, but the whole social media fast-paced mentality is people thinking it's going to be an overnight success. Is like to build a really credible brand, it takes years, even at the best of times. Is to keep on. I suppose the old saying is you're only as good as your last party, and that is true. At times you can put an amazing party, you have a stinker, and then all of a sudden.
Well, that's what happens. They tend a lot of the young promoters will do 2 great parties, and the third one bombs. They lose 500 quid, and you never see them again.
But that's the reality. Is you're not. There's been parties over the years. I'm not going to go into the financial side. We've had some amazing parties over the years. We've had some where you think, the lineup's amazing, like really credible. Loses big money.
Yeah.
And that's the side that people don't see. Is obviously because they're looking from the outside in. People think, you get the tickets, you get the bar, but a lot of headline talent now. I'm sure we'll come on to it in a bit more depth, but it's serious money. Now, I think across the board with a lot of genres.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's encouraging to see people like Sigil Radio, what they're doing. They did a party at the Hare the other day, and we've kind of gone to a different model during the summer where we just say to them, we'll pay this amount of money, and we'll cover all the costs of the night, and come and have a party and see how you go and see how you feel. And they had a really good night, and hopefully they'll come back and do some more. So you're having to do those little kind of slightly different deals with people to so they're taking away that risk. So they just bring the DJs, have a good night, hopefully enjoy themselves. They've not shelled out 1,500 quid, £2,000 on a DJ and been worried all night about whether they're getting it back. They've just come in and done it. But that again feels very organic, what they're doing. They're growing something from the ground up. They're not going in thinking we want to be bringing so-and-so to DJ at our first party. It's like, I think that's a better way. It's more like, it's DIY culture again. It's going back to that whole DIY punk, early acid house culture. It's the same. That's what's going to be working, I think.
But to be honest, don't get me wrong, I've been very privileged to be involved in some great parties where it's like 2,500, 3,000 cap, and the energy's still good. But some of the best nights I've had have been in the loft, at Lab, 200 people, low ceilings, strip lights. It's just pure energy because it's so compact there. They're some of the best ones, and it's not state-of-the-art production that you see at Coachella or Glastonbury and wherever else. It's very back to basics, but it's just good sound system, good music, and I think that's what people forget sometimes. It becomes so overcomplicated. So no, get the fundamentals right, the basics in terms of good sound system. I mean, even when I've been at you guys, good sound engineer, somebody really keeps on top of things. It goes a long way, because you can book great talent. I would say all the time, you can book great DJs if they're playing on poor equipment, whether it's turntables, whether it's Pioneer CDJs, if they've got a poor system. You can have the best DJ who makes the best records. So it's not going to connect in the same way.
No, it's so important that when you run a venue, a club venue, that you keep on top of the production. You know, I feel like we've got a great team at the Hare. Ian Forster's our production manager, and Tony Granger does all our club stuff. We have a real good team of engineers. Every day, if there's anything slightly wrong, it's dealt with. If there's a problem with equipment, it gets repaired. You know, Ian's got a little kind of desk in the Hare where he kind of does all the repairs, keeping on top of it, making sure the equipment's clean, making sure the microphones are working. It should be the kind of standard that every venue has. Unfortunately, it isn't the case. There's a lot of venues you go to, not naming any names, but there was a few venues we used to do in Digbeth back in the sort of 10 years ago, and you turn up and you'd be like, we've got 1,600 people coming tonight, and you've got one CDJ that's working, or you haven't cleaned the green room from the night before and it stinks.
Yeah, it's not.
And these are just such basic things that you need to get right.
A long way. The basics do.
They go a long way. So we always try to make sure that when the artists and the promoters turn up, things are right, and they know who the manager is on duty, you know who the sound engineer is, and it's just that kind of human touch.
Communication as well, I think, is definitely a big thing, because sometimes you turn up to venues, and I've seen it before, especially when you're booking up foreign talent. You know, they're in a completely new environment. Some of them are making their debuts. Some of them are even like quite young. You imagine, you've been producing in your bedroom. You know, or maybe you've done well on social media. You know, you're a good DJ and producer. You go to a foreign country, sometimes by yourself, because obviously you can't afford to take a tour manager or your partner or a friend with you. You're coming to, I mean, let's be honest, if you land in Birmingham and you've come from, I don't know, Rotterdam, you're going to think, Christ, this is a bit of a culture shock. So even those little things of, the promoter looking after you when you get to the venue, you know who the artist liaison is. Yeah, quite across the board, from like the promoting aspect even to right the way through to the artist. But with you saying earlier on about the general perception of King's Heath back in the day, obviously my experiences of it since I moved here in 2016 have always been positive, like really like nice community vibe. When would you say things started to progress positively, and what would you say those like catalysts were that were?
I think obviously, without blowing our own trumpet, the Hare has obviously changed perception. It's being a sort of a nationally known music venue helps change the perception of an area, and a lot of people will come in to the gigs. But I think probably about 10 years ago, we started to see an influx of new small businesses. So York Road, Poplar Road, a few places like King's Court on the High Street, where you'd get like really cool coffee shops, a little bakery. You'd get like a cheese and wine like place like Grace and James, and you'd get like a nice pizza place opening. A couple of crafty beer bars like the Duke and Hop and Scotch. And it started to feel like people were taking a risk on King's Heath because the rents were cheap, probably. I think they still are reasonably cheap, and it felt like it was an area that was changing. So there were more people buying houses in King's Heath because it was cheaper than Moseley. You got a lot more kind of young creatives moving into the area that perhaps got a little bit of money to spend.
Does that have a very creative vibe? Like working professional, but creative.
Yeah. It's probably the most kind of liberal part of Birmingham, I'd say, King's Heath. So we have the connections with Joe Lycett and the Pride event, Queen's Heath Pride. So I think we're the only suburb in Birmingham that has a Pride event. So we're very kind of open-minded, liberal in that sense. But we also have a big Muslim community. So there's an Eid event. And a lot of time people would say, those kind of things, those communities can't work together. It's bollocks. People like trying to build up narratives in their head of what kind of people can live and work together. King's Heath, we've got a mosque on Station Road. They're part of the community. We've got, as I said, a big gay community. We've got a very, very kind of politically active kind of anti-racism movement in King's Heath. It just feels like it's the kind of place where people are very supportive of each other, mindful of each other's kind of differences, but respecting of that.
Especially the world we live in today. I mean, like I say, not time in Birmingham, because I do love Birmingham. Otherwise, I still wouldn't be living here. But I've lived in a good few parts of Birmingham over the last 10 years or so, and there is certain parts where you don't get that vibe.
Yeah,
I don't know, that's
absolutely.
probably the same in any city. I mean, sometimes people, especially mates down in London, like say, oh, Birmingham this, Birmingham that. Well, it happens in London as well. There's certain parts you can go there that are very open-minded, then you go on the overground and the underground, and then it completely switches.
Yeah.
And it's very different. But I do agree with you, sometimes there's these toxic narratives that get built up, and then people start buying into it. So like, no, that's actually not the case. And obviously, living there firsthand and operating there, that's not the case. So, out of interest, in terms of the infrastructure side of things with the business, obviously you've said there, in terms of UB, I suppose, I know you probably don't refer to yourself as director, but director/owner, obviously Matt's kind of like your joint co-owner.
So he's co-owner,
co-owner.
Yeah.
Obviously then you've got, like you were saying, you've got like general managers, sound engineers, things like that. How long would you say it took from when you opened the doors? Obviously, I know you had experience prior in hospitality. When, for instance, you were saying the first year struggled, how many different roles were you having to take on before you...
Far too many.
Before you could then start taking a step back and looking at the infrastructure? Because I think that's what a lot of people don't know. They go in blind and think, oh, I'll just open a venue and it runs itself.
Yeah, no, not at all.
The reality is definitely not the case. So talk me through how many roles...
So I was wearing a lot of hats. So I was so back then, there was me, and there was a general manager, assistant manager, and we had a sound engineer that kind of lived on site and but wasn't really a production manager. He was just a sound engineer. So compared to now, so there's me and Matt, who are the owners. We've got, on the music side, we've got production manager, Ian Forster. We've got a social media, marketing, PR person, Marta. We've got Ted that does advancing and helps with marketing. We've got Tony that's the club engineer. Then a whole team of independent engineers. And then on the operations side, we work with the Plough now. So the Plough are kind of operation. Adam from the Plough is essentially the operations manager for everything for food and beverage. So then below him, he's got a general manager. We've got a deputy general manager. I think we've probably got 3 shift leaders. We've got team leaders. We've got box office staff. We've got merch staff. We've got reps. There's a whole team that have grown. That have grown through from nothing, which is why I think it's important when these businesses are looked at and not just what value they have culturally, what value they have economically to the area, because we provide a lot of income to a lot of different people.
Of course.
And we turn over a lot of money now, but we spend a lot of money on wages because you need a team.
Yeah, the overheads.
You need a team. So every time that we feel like we're kind of getting somewhere, we look back at our financials and we're like, okay, we've done well this year. Instead of going, well, what can we take out? We're like, well, what do we need to bring in to maintain that or to grow? So we'll always reinvest in people. We'll always reinvest. We're just advertising now for a deputy general manager to assist the general manager alongside the current manager, assistant managers, because we just need more people. Did it? Yeah.
Deputy.
But we just need, because food and the daytime has got so popular, we just haven't got the kind of enough people to kind of make sure that you run smoothly all the time without stretching.
How many roles did you take on then when it was first open?
Well, I was
cleaning with one hand and pulling the
I wasn't doing any of that, no. So I was booking all the artists. I was in charge of the social media because we didn't have anyone helping with social media straight away.
Was it more Facebook?
It was Facebook back then, yeah.
Now it's
MySpace,
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Yeah.
That job in itself is a full-time job. It's crazy.
So production-wise, I think I was liaising with the sound guy about advancing all the bands and DJs. Didn't have anyone else to help with operations, so the general manager would have spoken directly to me. So any issues with the kind of operations, it would have been me dealing with it with them. But yeah, I can't believe I did. And we had the Bull's Head at the same time, so I was doing the same for the Bull's Head. So
good job you suit grey hair, mate.
Well, yeah, I did have quite brown hair when I started. But I'd also had 3 small kids.
Ever look back and think, how did you do it? Because I say the same to Will. Obviously, he's got 3 children.
I don't know how. I don't know how I did it really, but it certainly stretched me physically and mentally. But I think it just made me very resilient. Like there were times where I felt like I was going to crash and burn, and somehow I didn't. So
I'm not advocating it, but I've been there myself, and I do think sometimes in this industry, and I know people say it shouldn't be normalised, but it's the nature of the beast. It comes with the territory. It's days, it's long nights. You have to be investing in it for the right reasons. When we have, for instance, even the long bank holiday weekends, I do think it puts hairs in your chest, and it does build that resilience, which in reality, to work in this industry long term, you need resilience.
you do.
If you don't have resilience, I think you're not going to last, or I just don't think you're not going to. Not everyone wants to climb the ladder, but I don't think you're going to progress that
Absolutely,
far.
and we recognise that with people. You can be anyone, someone working behind the bar, someone coming to do a DJ set, someone, repping a show. You see that character, and I would rather have someone that had the right character, but no experience of the job we're asking them to do, than somebody that had worked in the industry doing that job for 10 years, but you could see that they were beaten by it and deflated and didn't have the love for it. Because you can teach people to do, like everyone that's worked, like even like going back to Matt, he hadn't, like the level he's at now compared to when he started is like night and day. Like he's one of the best people at what he does in the country, without a doubt. Yeah. Without a doubt. And I say that with no kind of like, reserve. Like, he is brilliant at what he does. But he came on board and he just put on a couple of shows. He'd done,
and he was potential in people, isn't it?
He's seen that potential. Yeah.
It's like you can build people over time, and it's sometimes the ones, like you say, it doesn't matter whether you're bar staff, artist, the age. And I think sometimes, especially now, even on the likes of LinkedIn, you see people almost desperate to get into the industry, but it's like, are you doing it for the right reasons? Like sometimes people like to post, I was backstage with this person, but are you actually willing to put the hours in and craft and be back and forth, still put a smile on your face, still, not just push people away, make time for everybody. And like I said, I think a lot of that energy spills out as well, and it can be really detrimental to businesses. You keep people on who, they'll do the hours, but if they've got a face like a slapped arse and they're not really wanting to grow and learn, is then you end up losing custom. And especially in the current climate, that's the last thing you need.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having that all through the team is really important. That kind of wanting to be there, feeling a pride in what you're doing, a pride in the business that you're helping to run. And you're not always going to come to work in a good mood. Everybody, comes in feeling tired and hungover occasionally, and like me in the last interview. But I think having that kind of feeling like everybody's in it as a team, and that will help each other out if they're on difficult days or someone makes a mistake. You don't crucify them. You just kind of like but you want people to acknowledge they made a mistake.
In this industry, the amount of different plates that you're spinning in the hours.
Definitely. But I think we've built. I think one of the things I'm most proud about is the culture of what we've built. It's a nice place to work, the Hare Hounds. It's in the office at the top of the building where it's the production office. There's 4 or 5 of us working in there. We all get on really well. We have a laugh and a joke, but we crack on and we get on with it. We do incredible amounts of shows. You couldn't do the amount of shows that we do if everybody wasn't working together and didn't want to do it. So I feel really, really proud of that, really. And the same with the operational team now. Adam from the Plough has just introduced this kind of way of doing things that I don't think we were doing it terribly before, but they've really upped the standards of hospitality, definitely organisation. We use this system called EOS, which is like an Americanized kind of operation system, but it breaks everything down into accountability and organisational kind of clarity that we didn't probably have to this level before. But now everything that gets talked about on a weekly basis, everybody gets a chance to feed back on how things were, how things good or bad, and it just feels like we're going into this new kind of season ready, and that's important. You need to be ready for that busy period.
Out of interest, what are the biggest changes you've seen, obviously from 19 years from then to now, I suppose across the board, in terms of like your consumers, social media, I suppose just as a whole, what are the biggest changes?
Social media is probably the biggest one. I think that it just dominates, doesn't it? And the fact that everybody's got it on their phone,
it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
It's a double-edged sword. It can be amazing. There is a plus side to it. Like an old friend of mine, Johnny Griffiths, who I knew from the Medicine Bar days. He's been coming to shows for years. He's been part of the whole Left Foot kind of family, and he's just started coming to a few shows, and he's just filming stuff on his phone. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just getting a few things. And he'd sent me this little reel that he'd made at the end of this one show. and it was brilliant.
Yeah, some of the creatives, like
And it's really creative. It's like, and he loves doing it because he used to do stuff for us back in the day, and seeing that kind of someone using the phone in a really cool, creative, way that isn't positive way. Yeah. So there are a lot of pluses from it, but at the same time,
I think that it's the toxic side I don't like, especially with Instagram and even TikTok now. There's been this culture that's emerged in some aspects. It's not something I see with the likes of what you guys do, because I think you offer something completely different to what a lot of other people do. But especially some of the TikTok culture, once again, not completely tending for Gen Z, because I probably wasn't perfect, even though I was born in the 90s when I was at school, but it becomes very like fickle and like bandwagon effect, and then it becomes, especially from a business aspect, is if you're not booking this person or that person, then what you're doing isn't good. It's like, no, what we're doing is good. It's just that there's this whole narrative that's been around where if you're not this viral superstar on TikTok, then you're not popular, and that's where some elements of the music side I feel have been lost and almost degraded, because not being a star, but I think just society in general feels like the IQ's gone down a little bit, and people are buying into things that are generally crap.
It's attention span as well, isn't it? It's like people don't read books anymore, or even.
Well,
you do, yeah.
Just for show. I've never read any.
I think people are so used to being able to just doom scroll and I can't be bothered with that. Go on to the next thing. Oh, that will capture my attention for 10 seconds. Next thing. I think that's had a bad effect on that generation, because they're a bit like that at a show. They're like, do we need to be? Hold on, I'm enjoying this, but should I capture it?
People dancing at the start, they almost don't want to be the first person seen on the dance floor, and people will go to the smoke area. For me, I'll be front left straight away. And I think even now, there's certain events, even the BPM's gone up massively in terms of the level of mix, and even letting a record now play for 6-7 minutes.
Don't get me started on that. I hate that. One of my things with DJs is kind of turning up in a room, and if you're on first, it's having it too loud and you're banging out tunes. That's not
the warm up.
The warm up. Like, well, I'm playing tonight. I'm warming up for Quantic at the Hare, and like the first half an hour, it'll be ambient stuff that I probably won't play a beat, because there'll be people filtering in. There might not be many people there. They don't want to walk into a room that's absolutely loud. Like, keep it loud. Get a little bit of incense burning behind the decks, which is something that I learnt off Andrew Weatherall, actually, because he used to come and do that at the Hare, and I thought, I'm nicking that now. And so when we put a bit of incense, play really chilled, mellow music, and let the room get busy gradually and sort of fill up, and then when you start throwing in something that's got a bit more of a kind of a groove to it, you just see that gear change, and then again when you lift the tempo, and it's really nice. That, for me, that's the best experience DJing.
I think that's where it's not just the experience of. I think people who actually treat DJing as an art and as a profession rather than nowadays. I mean, not knocking it. There's probably too many podcasts out there, especially including me. There's a lot of DJs. Like, I always laugh at, is there more DJs or makeup artists nowadays? But I'm not knocking it. If you're passionate about it, but if there's like certain instances where people almost, because of the whole social media profile, kind of being that like celebrity status, is like, are you doing it for the right reasons? And I think that's where the likes of yourself. I've seen Tom Short has played for well over 10 years now, and you see the proper DJs who cut their teeth. They've gone out there, earned their stripes. They've played in loads of different environments. They've played to nobody for an hour and understood and actually respected the art of being a DJ. And it's also, like you say, warming up is, you're not the headliner. Especially if you book talent, it's people who almost want to steal the limelight and steal the show. I'd never book them in the first place. I think if you're good enough in what you do as like a booker and programmer, you should know anyway who's good enough to fill that slot and who needs to go elsewhere, prove that they can do it, and then they'll come back and get booked when the time's right. But yeah, it's a big frustration for me.
I think people just want, a lot of the new DJs coming through they just see all the clips of everyone with their hands in the air and the lights flashing and the drops, and that's what they want. That's what they aspire to. But DJing, being a real DJ, is not about that. It's like, that's great. Everyone loves playing to a packed dance floor and it's going off. But learning how to craft a set and to and respectfully hand over to another DJ as well. I think try not to go over your time allocation. Sometimes as well, it's nice if you kind of like reset the energy slightly. So I can't remember who said it, but it's like, you should never leave the following DJ on a massive banger. You should maybe take the energy down a little bit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like dropping the tempo. You can keep it the same tempo, but just make it a bit of a deeper tune. And last couple of times I've DJ'd warming up for Sasha, well, we've tried to do that. So it's gone a bit, and then we've brought it down a little bit. So where he's got something to kind of move into rather than he's got to try and match that energy. I think there's a lot of different skills to DJing that, you know, most people can beat match these days. It's easy on CDJs. They tell you the tempo. Some people are even using sync button. That's not the difficult thing anymore. The difficult thing is getting that kind of programming and reading and like knowing how to kind of like change the vibe.
If the warm-up set's done properly, it's probably my favourite of the night because you see the room build and build, and you can feel, like I say, taking it up a gear and energy. And to be fair, that, you know, there is some great warm-up DJs out there, but yeah, I think it can completely ruin the flow of a night.
Yeah.
As well, if that warm-up set peaks too soon, and then it's like, well, where do you almost go from there?
Yeah.
It's especially when you brought me onto quite a nice point there as well. Obviously about Sasha playing Hare Hounds. I know you've had obviously some amazing artists play even nowadays with how difficult it can be to get some. I mean, Sasha's a god. Let's be honest in terms of that progressive house sound. I mean, how important do you think culturally it's been to still retain some of those acts, you know, like Sasha? I know you've had DJ EZ as well, and does a lot of that come from your relationship building over the years? And
kind of, I mean, Matt more than me these days. I mean, he's just very good at being resilient with agents. So we'll go in with an idea. I think we've tried to get Sasha. Yeah, I think Sasha and Laurent Garnier were both two DJs we tried to get for years. Tried to get for years and never had any joy. And we'd always send offers. Oh, look, Ben UFO's played here, and you know, so and so's played here, and Goldie comes back regularly. And then eventually something, I can't remember what it was with Laurent Garnier, but something clicked, and they were like, "Oh, we're up for this." Got him in, obviously a brilliant night, got some great film footage of it. And then you've got that to go back to Sasha with, well, Laurent Garnier played here last month.
If you're getting Laurent Garnier in, that's going to
And he was like, oh, Laurent Garnier's been playing, has he? And then Sasha's agent was like, yeah, we've got a date. Do you want to try? Because we're doing this, that's the key. It's like, you're not going to get them on a Friday and Saturday night when they're getting peak money. You're going to get them on a Sunday afternoon when it's an add-on.
It comes down to touring as well. I remember one of my friends, he's a massive Sasha fan. He had him in Nottingham. I think he doubled up with Fabric in London. I think, well, we're still getting paid, you know, respectable amount of money, but because logistically, you know, we're not having to come from God knows where. It's already in England, so yeah, it makes sense.
You're going to put offers in that are going to work for that day. So, not going to talk figures, obviously, but it's probably half the price that they're going to get for a Friday or Saturday night. But it makes sense. You know, we were like, oh, can we charge 25 quid a ticket?
How quickly did Sasha sell out?
In like 3 seconds or something. It was ridiculous. It was literally just as soon as it went on sale, all the tickets were in the basket.
I loved seeing that personally, because even though, you know, I don't see it as like healthy competition, but even like operator to operator, it was really nice from a cultural standpoint, seeing the Hare Hounds in Birmingham is booking Sasha on a Sunday. And like I say, let's be honest, in terms of progressive house, like, he's a pioneer. There's no one, even like your Frankie was, I know probably John Digweed, but he is a legend. He's still massive now. Yeah,
he is, and he's a really nice, quiet, sort of nice fella, you know. He's clearly not
a party boy.
Not anymore. He was in his day.
I think most were.
I remember reading an article actually about I think it was in Mix Mag, and he said something like, "I'd never go and play for a promoter who doesn't like getting on it." And
isn't it funny how you see them change when they realise how intense the touring is? I'm sure Jamie Jones was quite public, and he said when he was doing the seasons in Ibiza in the early noughties, and he said, "Yeah, I was being a bit too greedy. I was, you know, having everything that was coming my way. I was taking it, and then." Once you blow up and the touring starts, you realise it's not sustainable. If you want to stay at that level and consistently perform, and you're earning big money, you know, people are spending their hard-earned wages. You know, the promoter's got a lot on the line as well, and you've got to be. You can't be that.
If you're going to take it to that level and be doing it for long, you can't be that messy one that just like, what was that one? There was one DJ that I remember that used to get absolutely annihilated.
Wasn't Brandon Block, was it?
Well, he was. Yeah, he was. But I think he's
on during lockdown.
I think he was wild in the 90s, 80s, and 90s. But I think he cleaned his act up. But no, there was someone from that whole kind of Hot Creations kind of era.
Rich Yarmouth.
possible Leafos.
Leafos, yeah, it's Leafos.
Leafos. And Alex, my partner, she was doing the door at an event. She was doing the door for the Rainbow. I was DJing.
I know this
She was
story.
doing the door, and he turned up at the door, and she was on the door, and she was like, she's looking at the door, and we're like, are we going to let this guy? And he was like, get it off his nut, you know. And they were like, yeah, he's the DJ. And she was like, fucking hell. Like, she was used to being at the Hare.
That era, they were smashing it hard back then.
Absolutely. How the hell do you then DJ when you, like, can barely get, like, liquid melting through the front door? You know, like, not together at all.
I've done my fair share of partying, but I can't even imagine it's fun. When it's like that, because you can't function. You can't
it's just, that's just a bit silly, isn't it? But I hope he sorted himself out. I don't want to be down on Lee Foss because I don't know him, but
I think he still does like to party.
does he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you also get people that go the other way, don't you? You get a load of people that, like, especially from that scene, that were like really kind of on it, DJing, and then they're, next thing you know, they're running a yoga retreat and doing ice baths and you know, like, doing ayahuasca retreats.
So I rate anyone that's like that, but what does irritate me at times when people try taking the moral high ground. I'm like, no, you partied hard for 20 years, so don't all of a sudden act like you're a saint. I completely rate it. You know, you've turned things around. Namaste. You know, you know, you turn it around, but I'm like, you know, don't try and preach too much.
I think it's in moderation. It's like, that's the thing. Life is about balance, isn't it? Yeah. Like, you can have a bit of a party and you can do a bit of the kind of, you know, the yoga and stuff, but try and get a nice balance. Yeah. Going all one way or the other, it just tends to lead to sort of issues.
Definitely. I mean, Laurent Garnier, I think I may have seen him at Warehouse Project years ago, but I know that people always say about time warp in Mannheim, like it goes on for God knows how long, and he always plays the final set of the entire
I think I've seen that,
festival, but it's in like a glass room, and then it has the sun's coming up, and some of the videos you see, I mean, he's got to be one of the best ever. He's up there with Carl Cox. And
he's a legend.
People say he can like slip between genres. He can go from jazz into house. The way he can transition is
he's got such broad taste. You know, I think I often see on the returns for, you know, like when they mail out digital promos, and he's often one of the first comments that always comes, Laurent Garnier, and it could be a jazz record, a reggae record. He's definitely got very eclectic taste, and I think he retains that kind of just love of music and you see that kind of passion for what he does.
Yeah, of course. I know that you built a lot of other special relationships over the years. Obviously, Giles Peterson, obviously Andrew Weatherall, bless him, Luke Una. I mean, talk me through some of those relationships. I suppose some of the special nights you've had as well.
Yeah, Giles Peterson has probably been the kind of, because he had a kind of a national or international even profile, and he had his radio, when we first started booking him, he had a Radio 1 show. We actually had him for a Radio 1 live in Birmingham week, and they took over the city for a week. And Giles did his show, which was a Wednesday night show back then. I think like 10.
Custard Factory one.
10 till 2. And he broadcast from the Custard Factory, and it was amazing. It was like literally just surreal that this was happening. He'd been such a hero of mine. So that was the first night that I met him, and it's always good when you get off to a good start, isn't it? And I think he'd not really been sure about what Birmingham was about, and hadn't played for a few years, and then he was like, wow, this is great.
At least you didn't turn up like Lee Foss.
It definitely didn't turn up like Lee Foss, no.
Positive start.
And it started this relationship, and he kept coming back, and we'd have him twice a year, maybe we had him on a few New Year's Eves, and it just built a really special kind of relationship with him. And he was doing kind of the Radio 1 show, and he'd do like a club of the year and a track of the year, and I think we won best club night of the year in 2002 or 2003, and it really catapulted us into kind of national kind of awareness, really, and international to some degrees. Off the back of it, we ended up doing a Left Foot night in Paris, and we did them in Nottingham and Liverpool and London, and I feel like Giles was a massive part of that, you know, his support. So yeah, that's been a relationship that's been really strong. He's coming back in November. He's doing a Sunday afternoon party with Jam Supernova.
Nice. She's on BBC, isn't she?
She's on Six Music as well.
Yeah.
She I think she has slots before Giles on a Saturday. So yeah, that's an important one. Scruff, again, someone that I've known probably since the late 90s. He's just an absolute don and a master. Like, there's very few DJs that can kind of touch him for his knowledge and his ability, technical ability. Luke Una, I've known again from the late 90s, and he was someone that I was very inspired by, because I went to his club night, Electric Chair in Manchester, and they were playing everything from hip hop and house and jazz funk, bit of drum and bass, techno, and I was like, I love this vibe. So I always often cite Electric Chair as an influence. He's kind of had a bit of a renaissance, if you like, or a kind of new career since lockdown, because
I love his videos he puts out, because he's very much, that's what, see, we've had Laurent on from Manchester, that very much like Mancunian approach, where he's like, I am what I am, and I do like his
he's very funny.
Content. He's unapologetically himself.
He's very, very funny, and he's a very charming guy, and I think people really started to really connect with his Instagram posts, because they were silly and funny, but they were also quite poignant and moving at times. And then he started doing the worldwide show on Giles Peterson's radio station. I think that got a really big audience. And then coming out of lockdown, he just started, I take the piss out of him sometimes. Like, you've become this kind of influencer slash kind of like superstar DJ. And he just goes, and he just plays these amazing gigs. He goes and plays all around the world. And
it's nice to see proper artists get championed, because sometimes the world of social media becomes so fickle, and it's nothing against Luke, I'm sure we both agree, is sometimes you see people, because they've got all the Selfridges top floor designer garms on, and they look like an influencer. So but DJ wise, you can't DJ.
No.
And then they get championed for the wrong reasons. It's like, no, it doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, how you dress. If you're a good DJ, you're a good DJ.
The thing about Luke is he's got that side, that influencer side, that kind of Instagram personality, but he's a real deal as well. Like, he came through Sheffield in the sort of mid-80s. He's been a DJ for long. He's been a DJ for a long time. He's been a promoter for a long time. He's got the ammunition to kind of back up that kind of personality, whereas a lot of these new personalities, if you like, Instagram, they just haven't got that history and that culture and that sort of, the thing about Luke, he's very kind of self-effacing as well. He doesn't take himself too seriously.
That's right to be.
Which is great, and I think fair play to him. He's just going from strength to strength. He's coming back as well in start of October. We've got him on a Saturday night, I think October the 3rd or 4th.
Well, that's strong pop then. That's the frustrating thing, is I see things and I look at our calendar.
And you're like, I'm working, yeah.
It's always got, something.
No, but that would be great. You should come down and check him out. He's a great DJ and a really sound guy as well.
Yeah. How about Andrew Weatherall? I know sadly he passed away.
Yeah.
Not long ago, was it?
I think it was just a month before lockdown started.
Yeah.
I think it was out of the blue. It was a real shock. So I first booked Andrew Weatherall in '97. I think we put on a gig at the Custer Factory. We'd done these Summer Madness events, which were like around the pool, and then we tried a Winter Madness one, which was madness because it was the coldest room I've ever been in my life. But we had Andrew Weatherall with Ronnie Size, DJ Crust, Red Snapper live, and it was a really great party. But he was in that era when he'd come out of the sort of he'd been playing like real banging techno for a while, and he'd gone back into deep house, and he played a really beautiful deep house set, really musical, and I was just blown away by how good he was. And then probably didn't book him again until the Hare Hounds. I went through a big period where he was playing for different promoters in Birmingham. I think he played for Wobble quite a bit, and Procreation, another house night. And he came back to the Hare Hounds probably 2007, 2008. And then just started to become a regular visitor and did the Alphos nights with Sean Johnston. And just a lovely, lovely, genuine man. Still to this day, one of the only DJs that I've ever known at the end of the night. So my mate Bram was putting a night on with Weatherall playing. And we were sitting in the dressing room afterwards. And we hadn't quite got the numbers. It had done like 120, 130. And I think Andrew was saying to Bram, how did you do? And Bram was like, I lost a few £100, but it is what it is. We take that gamble. Last time he came, we did well. And he went, man, I'm not doing that. And gave him half his fee back. Just gave it to him. He was like not arguing.
Yeah, you wouldn't say that.
He just said, I said, I don't want you to be out of pocket. I've had a really nice night. We've had some good shows together. And that, can you imagine some of the big hitters doing that?
I can't.
I mean, it's just unheard of, but that's the kind of bloke he was. He was really nice. And we booked him a few times, always great, always a lovely man. And then I think when he started doing the Alphas, he came and you'll see where I'm going with this in a minute, but he came and did a night and he said, I've got a couple of names for the guest list. And he said one of them, a local guy called Joe Lycett, +1. And I'd heard of Joe's name, but he wasn't famous then. He was kind of doing the comedy circuit. And that was the first time I met Joe, through Andrew, because Joe knew Andrew through a mutual friend and they'd hung out in London. And that started, obviously, a good relationship with Joe and obviously working on the Queen's Heath Pride. So he kind of was quite an interesting character, and he had a very diverse group of friends. And I think it was testament to the kind of man he was. He's very kind of intelligent, real reader, loved literature, loved film, and obviously music, but just a real unique character.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know when he passed away, literally every single comment you saw about him as people, paying respect to him and
absolutely, massively
not even just the musical side, but just
the man, kind person, very much so.
Was. Yeah. So going forwards then, in terms of like all the bookings that you've had over the years, obviously like Laurent Garnier, Sasha, DJs. I know you had Marc Rebillet, didn't you?
That was a random one.
That was an amazing booking.
That was, that started. Someone I knew had shared one of his videos from his apartment in Brooklyn or wherever he lived, and I watched it, and sometimes things don't capture your imagination, and like I was talking about earlier, you scroll. But I was like, this is mad. Where's he going with this? And so I started watching it. I watched a few more, and then thought, you know what, I'm just gonna. I messaged him on Facebook. So from my own personal account to his personal account, just went, all right, Mark, I run a venue in Birmingham. I don't know whether you ever come into the UK, but if you do, we'd love to have you. I think you're amazing. It's great what you're doing. And he got back to me and he said, hey Adam, how you doing? He said, yeah, I've had a couple of promoters reach out from the UK. I'll let you know. And then I think about 3 or 4 months later, this other promoter from somewhere up north, a guy called Chinny, who unfortunately passed away recently, messaged me and said, oh, do you know this guy? And I was like, yeah. Have you been talking to him? I was like, yeah, me too. He said, we're bringing him over. Do you want to put him on? It's like 100%. So we just turned up at the station. We picked him up, took him to the gig, had some food with him. He did the gig. It was just ridiculous.
Wasn't it midweek you did it as well?
It's like a Wednesday night or something. Sold out like another one of those ridiculously quick sellouts. But yeah, just had a brilliant night with him, and he's just
one video I need to get up. I'll probably put it on the B-roll, and it was him. I think he was just in like a restaurant, and people were just like eating there, and people were like, "This guy's a bit strange." And I feel like he starts incorporating all this stuff, and then he just goes off on one, and then all of a sudden, the room just explodes. I need to find it. You may have seen it. To be honest, but yeah, he is.
He's massive now, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, he's huge.
Like we tried to get him again, and it was just like.
No. I'm sure he's done. I can't remember whether he did something mad like Park Life, just as an obscure.
I think he does he does like arenas.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't quote me on this. Maybe it was Glastonbury, but I think because he's such a curveball booking, that he's away from what everyone else is doing. He's you know how it is with like progressive house, deep house, tech house, drum and bass. Some of these things are so saturated, and it's just Marc Rebillet.
He's just out on his own.
Out in no man's land, just doing his. Doing his thing. But what would you say are some of the main standout nights and the ones that will always remain?
I think that first UB40 when they came and did Signing Off start to finish, which had been such an important album for me as a kid. Like I loved it. It was like how that was my first introduction to kind of that dub reggae sound, and it just had such a special place, in my heart. So had seen them. Sing King and Food for Thought, which is obviously a Blue Nose anthem, was just amazing, and they were all really sound. There'd been like a couple of real sort of legends from my youth, like Marlena Shaw and Roy Ayers. So people like that playing was always really important. And we had a really
Everybody Loves the Sunshine.
Yeah. So he played a couple of times. Yeah, and we had this guy called Charles Bradley who'd been they'd made a film about his life, and he was almost like a tribute. He was a tribute singer in I can't remember exactly where, Chicago or somewhere. And they'd made this amazing film about him, and it'd become a bit of a cult film. And off the back of the film, he'd started a band with some really good musicians, and he was actually getting to perform his own material that he'd written, and he'd never been able to do it before. So he did a tour, and we put him on. And Shane Meadows, the filmmaker, emailed us and said, you've got Charles Bradley on, I really want to come, but you've sold out. We're like, no problem, we'll put you on the guest list. So
This is England.
So Shane Meadows turned up,
Fair
and
play.
me and Alex, my partner Alex, we sat and had a drink with him before the show, which was amazing because we love him anyway, love everything he does, and everyone was like, is that Shane Meadows? I was like, yeah, it's Shane. It's just bizarre. So we went upstairs, watched the show. He brought the house down. Everyone is in tears. It's like the most emotional soul music. This guy is like sort of singing his heart out on the stage, and it was just beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
Nice. That's wicked. I was thinking as well, obviously, because when I've been in, obviously, especially from a business angle, I know you've said, especially during the summer, you've got like the outdoor area where people are drinking. Obviously, I know like inside, there's like very much that real old school authentic pub feel, obviously with the interior and just like the general vibe. And obviously then in terms of like the upstairs, and then obviously you'll do food, was a lot of that just not wanting to be pigeonholed, but was a lot of it more business thinking where you thought rather than being one dimensional, we can't just be a club, we have to do a bit of everything in order to make it financially viable?
I think that kind of way of thinking came about sort of post-lockdown. So we'd always just been a pub and a late night drinking place and a live and a club venue. And then it was like, we really need to start introducing more kind of families and people coming in the daytime. So we kind of built a couple of kitchens. We started a project with Brad Carter doing the One Star Doner Bar kebabs, which we did initially as a pop-up, and then we kind of went with that for about 6 months, and then Brad went off and did other things, and we were left with these two really nice kitchens, but we were talking to various people about where to go next, about what kind of food offer. And then Adam Johnson said, oh, we'd be interested in doing that. And I just didn't believe him at first. I was like, you've got the plough, it's massively successful, what do you want to come over to King's Heath for? He's like, no, really do. So we had a few meetings, and he brought his kind of head chef and his GM, and we kind of talked it over, and then we decided to go for it. Then they launched, went really well in terms of like the culture, the change of culture. And we were like, okay, well, do you want to run the whole operation side of things? So they brought in their own manager, Jake Golek, who's an amazing young lad. He's only 30, but he's just got loads of experience, and he's just really, really kind of on it. You know, he'd worked for the Plough, been trained for them, then gone off and done some stuff in town. So he came on board as general manager, and the whole culture started to change. It didn't happen overnight, but it gradually, you could see the way the staff were kind of interacting with customers, the kind of offer, the look of the place. So Adam's wife, Sarah, came in and filled the place with plants, did a lot of nice touches. And it's gradually evolved into this really kind of nice place to come on a Saturday lunchtime, Sunday lunchtime. And it means that you're getting busy during the day, and then at night, the people that are coming for the gigs come. Clubs even later, so it's kind of like multifaceted now. But I think that's why this year has been really good, is that we've got something for so many different types of people. You know,
it definitely helps, doesn't it? I think it helps keep things fresh, even probably from your perspective, instead of sometimes people don't understand when you're in the industry and it's just like show after show after show. But when you've been in it for that long, it's not that you get tired of it, but it can become a little bit monotonous at times. Whereas, I mean,
it's difficult saying keeping things fresh. You know, that's. I remember a few, like 10 years ago. I remember a few of my friends were like, "We love the Hare, but we come to so many shows there. We're just going to have a break," and then you wouldn't see them for 6 months. And I'd get it. It's like there's only so many times you can see a certain type of DJ in that room and not feel like you need to go and to another venue or another city. But now, because the changing of the kind of culture downstairs and the kind of constant churning of like bands coming through that are totally different, like totally different every day of the week, it just means that you're getting your pool of people, your pool of customers is broad, really wide, and we get.
It's almost like you offer two completely different kind of experiences, and it's almost like it's not one venue in a good way. Where you're downstairs, you know, you can have a few pints, like liven up a bit, and then go, "I'm going upstairs now."
Definitely, it definitely has that kind of feel to it. But when people come for the first time, say friends that haven't been from other cities, they're just like, "Wow, York Road's just great."
Yeah,
it really is. Feels like a great place to come and hang out.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I wanted to discuss, which I do think is really important to come, and I know we've mentioned it a few times, and like I say, You know, there's good owners and bad owners. There's good agents, bad agents, good promoters, bad promoters, good managers, bad managers. But like there is a culture, and we see it firsthand at times, especially in the current climate, in terms of bookings. You know, in terms of the cost, the overheads, dealing with some agents. And I think one thing I wanted to voice personally is one of the biggest concerns I'm seeing, and you might have it yourself, is there's this whole culture now, especially with like social media, with Spotify. There's so much smoke and mirrors around when people will approach you and they'll say, oh, I've got 200,000 followers on Instagram. I've got 500,000 listeners on Spotify. So therefore, the fee is this much. But then for me, it's like there seems to be this massive disconnect where there's people out there, and you've probably seen as well, you might only have less than 10,000 followers on Instagram. You might not even have any presence on Spotify, but you're actually worth tickets. So you don't mind spending the money if you know that the hard data is there and it's clear. And this is one thing that just really concerns me, is this massive disconnect. And it's almost like people, almost a bit naive, not doing their homework and almost being taken advantage of in some ways by paying way over the odds for acts that just are not worth tickets. And it almost feels like a bit of a scam.
It is. I think the way around that is to work with agents that you've known a long time and trust.
And there are some good agents, like I said previously. Coming on here, saying, oh, this agent, but there are some great ones out there. But there is this culture that's...
Yeah, I think more so in the kind of club world, agents have got a bad rep because they will, certain agents will kind of overhype and overcharge for their artists based on, you know, a big one hit or one bit of viral kind of video. But the ones that are great are the ones that see each city differently. They don't expect Birmingham fees to match Manchester or London fees. They also see the size of the venue. You know, there's those agents that Sasha and Laurent Garnier could have just looked at 250 cap in the suburbs of Birmingham above a pub and gone.
Does Lauren Kay still live with you? Works for Earth Agency.
Yeah, she's based. She kind of comes and hangs, works from our office.
We had one of her acts not that long ago, and she understood it was part of a record that we're releasing. It was part of the marketing campaign. She understood the capacity of the room. All the acts were basically being brought on as a back-to-back as part of the marketing campaign. And she completely saw the bigger picture, and it was going to benefit the artist long term. And that was a great point you just made there, is it should be by rights territory to territory. And we had Themba, a South African artist who's amazing with the Afro House, part of Black Coffee's crew. And sometimes he will play in Mykonos, in Monte Carlo, where people are dropping 50,000 euros on a table, which obviously you're going to get paid far more money because the amount of money being thrown around there is just a completely different world. Whereas, funny enough, when you come into Birmingham on a Friday night and it's 10, 15 quid a ticket and you're paying £6 for a vodka lemonade, your fee is going to be significantly less. Absolutely. And that's what I respect, is when people understand, and that's how it should be. Is there's acts out there who could probably do, even at Newcastle they could sell out an arena, but in Birmingham your sound doesn't connect quite in the same way up north or down south like it does here. And that's really by rights how it should be. Is we don't have particularly huge venues compared to some out there that are like even like 10,000 cap. Some of the venues you see in the UK now, like our ticket prices, our bar spend, the overheads that are involved, and I think there needs to be that appreciation for the venue size and territory to territory.
The good ones do get it. The good ones do get it. It's fun having Lauren in the office because we do take the piss out of her mercilessly, and we love her. But it's like she's like an enemy in the ranks. So she sometimes we'll absolutely rinse her about certain things, and she'll be on a call, and she'll come off the call and we'll be like, "You wanker." But it's fun. Do you know what I mean? It's like good banter, and I think it's good for her to see how promoters and venues operate as well. So I think if there were more of those kind of opportunities for agents and venues and promoters to sort of sit with each other and understand the difficulties because there are difficulties on their side. I've been with her when she's lost an artist, and it's been really upsetting for her, someone that she's built up.
I totally agree.
It's ruthless. The agents world is utterly ruthless.
There's an agent I know, and he works for CAA now, and he built up some massive acts. But the worst part is when the equity is there, then the Sharks are.
And they all seem to like, you often get this thing where agents leave an agency and set up a new agency, take loads of artists with them and even take more agents with them. And then it happens again and you just see, it's like, whoa.
I'm a big believer personally. I know there's certain acts out there that are absolutely huge and they're like arena level acts. They're like literally around the world, any territory they go to, they are printing tickets for fun. So naturally, you sometimes need that bigger agent in order to negotiate because they know sometimes the promoter's being a little bit naughty in terms of, you know, like the capacity, the ticket prices. They're ramming more people in, making way more than what they say they're making. But in certain instances, I'm a big believer in if you're good enough as an act, I think you shouldn't be overly reliant on the agent and the manager. Like, don't get me wrong, you need the right people around you, especially as you continue to grow and you climb the ladder, having the right manager that can negotiate for you, the right agent. But I just think sometimes when people jump ship, it does more harm than good because then you go to certain agencies. I'm not going to throw any names around because, you know, there are some great agencies out there where it's very much about how much you're bringing in each month. But then it can be dangerous because there's only so many acts that can maintain those huge fees. And once you hit a certain level and then in order to, you know, keep putting out the big records, keep selling the tickets, stay relevant, especially nowadays with how easy it is to, you know, 1 minute you're hot and then post-COVID, all of a sudden you're not the act that everybody wants to see anymore. It's very ruthless in that respect as well with punters. But I think, it's, you know, we all want to, you know, earn good money, you know, look after ourselves, look after our families, but the amount of careers I've seen crash and burn as well when it goes too far up financially and then suddenly when the only way is down, the perception is not good and then you almost have to try and rebuild.
You see a lot of big egos in this industry and they crash and burn. I think if you're in it for that kind of, if for egotistical reasons and just to make money, that becomes very evident very quickly. You know, the people that are in it for the long run are the ones that tend to be a bit more grounded.
No, 100%.
You know, Will being a great example, you know. Will's definitely somebody we always look as a good operator in Birmingham and someone that knows how to run a business, you know. There's been plenty of them who aren't good at it.
It's like you were saying then, earlier on, about that first year, you know, when it wasn't easy financially. I'm obviously same for the guys when they reinvested in the refurb, like the 360 booth, they did all the terrace production, then COVID hit. And then you're kind of, as an independent operator, same as you're trying to get through there, you've got pretty much no support government-wise. You're apparently not seen as contributing to the culture, which is crazy. But like you say, you do see the people who are in it for the right reasons and not just investing in it financially. Obviously, there is the business aspect. We're not charity. We're not here just to completely do it for the passion, but it doesn't always go as smooth as you want it to. And that's where, the people who actually, like I say, in it for the right reasons, they tend to stand the test of time.
Yeah, definitely.
So just to kind of wrap up, I'm interested in terms of your experience kind of as a promoter and operating as a venue owner as well. What do you think makes like a good promoter and a good venue owner as well? I suppose from some of the learning curves you probably experienced over the years as well. Yeah,
I mean, promoter-wise, I think you've got to be into the music that you're promoting, first of all. You've got to be a fan. I mean, in later years, you can develop kind of acts within, like, you know, obviously you don't love absolutely everything, but I think when you start off, you have to have that kind of like nerdish obsession with the music that you're promoting. I think a lot of promoters are DJs and they want, this very much for me, it was like I was a DJ and I wanted to play a good party, and that's one of the reasons I did it tonight, and I think that's a good thing. You've also got to be very kind of driven and prepared to kind of go through those times when it might not work and you're playing to an empty dance floor, you're kind of thinking, well, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be, but that's where the kind of resilience and character comes in. But these days, I think it's so hard to get started. It's like we were doing stuff, it's so much cheaper, even like taking into account like sort of inflation, it would just seem like less of a risk, you know, there were less costs and DJs were a lot cheaper comparatively. Nowadays, I just don't know how they do it. You know, it's really.
I think it was a lot less competitive and saturated back then as well. Or was there still a lot going on?
There was a lot going on, but for me, our golden period at the Medicine Bar, there were sort of 5 or 6 key promoters that were kind of all friends and knew each other, and they were all different, and we all supported each other's nights, but we weren't sort of taking crowds off each other. And some people would go to like 3 or 4 of the nights, and then you just had your own thing. But it felt like it was a community, and you know, you had a problem or you needed to hire this or that, you'd speak to somebody, or you're speaking to about a certain booking, you'd want to know advice on what you paid for that person on the same agency. So there was that community. I think that was important for us. It's like we always had that. And also everything was so much cheaper then. Like early days Medicine Bar, we were charging like £5 in max. I mean, this is going back to 2000, but even taking everything into account, that was quite cheap. So we were getting like 700-800 people at £5.
Profit margins were a lot better, weren't they? Like
Whereas you were making money off it and paying the DJs what they wanted, but you were keeping it affordable for people. Whereas now it's so expensive. Like you can't put on, you know, 20-25 quid is quite common now for club nights. And whilst the older kind of sort of 35 plus that've got decent jobs and, you know, a bit more security can afford it, it's the kids that can't, you know, like.
I think that's the difficulty as well, is you're almost stuck between a rock and a hard place where some of the cost of talent that a lot of the younger demographic want to see, your ticket prices are only just covering the overheads of the talent and the production, security, everything else, and then you're almost entirely reliant on your bar to make profit, which is wild. I mean, I speak to people in different countries, and I've put a few things on LinkedIn and voiced just honest, you know, diplomatic opinions that are fact, and they find it absolutely insane in other territories around the world that in some respects we've become so heavily reliant on it. And I know people can tell, well, if you go back to basics of promoting, you know, you build a good brand in residence, but it's not as easy as that. I think now a lot of this younger generation, they want to see the big hitters more and more. So if you don't put them on, then it's hard to bring in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's I think club promoters are I think we're gonna see a few more barren years. Something will have to change eventually, but I just hope it doesn't keep going down that route of more and more corporate sort of club nights and venues. And
long live the independent.
Yeah, and I have
Hare Hounds.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, we shall see what the future holds. But
no, definitely. What about from a venue owner perspective then? Because I can imagine, like we've discussed before, it's a lot of responsibility, even when you can delegate well to certain people. I mean, what do you think makes a good venue owner?
Definitely being able to delegate well in the end and having people that you can trust to do things. From the early days of having to oversee everything through to now, I mean, there's so many different people within the organisation that do stuff to the level that they need to do it to make me feel like I can trust them to do that. There's so I think one of the things to go from like DJ to club promoter to venue owner, there's a real sort of skill gap. Like, yes, you can DJ, yes, you can put on parties, but what you need to know to run a venue properly. So all the health and safety and all the insurance and all the kind of legislation and making sure that you do your fire risk assessments and your electric checks and you know, your staff documents and everything that goes with all that kind of stuff, which I've always hated, if I'm honest. I think we did it okay to a certain level, but now it's been done to the ultimate professional level with the player running that side of things. Is like all those boxes are ticked, making sure that you're leaving yourself leaving yourself open to you know, people hurting themselves, injuring themselves, coming at you for, you know, 101 reasons that you could be.
Do you think there's too much red tape, or do you think a lot of it is necessary?
It does feel like that way, that there is too much red tape, but most of it is necessary. Sometimes you can feel a bit like, God, they're being a little bit too much on this, but it's done to protect, you know, it's why we've got high health and safety standards.
As we see in the industry, a lack of regulation can lead to.
Well, we've seen it. We've seen, you know, some quite famous kind of venues in Birmingham over the last years where there's been multiple deaths as a result of poor operations, and you can't deny that needs to be addressed. You know, that's why the authorities and licensing come down on people, because they've scrimped or they've not done something properly, and someone has lost their life as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're not here to drop names, like use anyone as a scapegoat or anything like that, because it's happened in a lot of different places, but it's something that I've observed. And even from when I was working in pubs back in 2010, sometimes I've learned a lot more seeing how not to operate,
100%.
almost in not operating, and you stand back and you observe from a distance, and like you say, it's simple things. I mean, I've seen even the infrastructure that we have to have now because of licensing conditions at Lab 11, and I give full credit to Will and Dee for not cutting corners and not just looking at it as, oh, we can save money here and make money here, because it's about looking after your customers properly and doing things the right way. And it's simple things you look at, even from before you even enter the club. There's some events you might need a dog handler in order to detract certain individuals from behaving a certain way, like metal detectors. It's a shame that we're kind of in that position now in society, but sometimes it's necessary. ID scanners, sometimes we have welfare teams on, you have paramedics, you have security. They're not just shirt fillers from the local Tesco. They're guys that have been properly trained, have got good presence, and that's just the world we live in now. If you're going to do things properly and operate at that level, even like you say, operations managers, having people who, fair play to Brad, who works for us, like very switched on. Your GMs is the art of delegation, having people in the right places, because otherwise the risk levels just go stratospheric straight away.
It's very easy to lose everything.
100%.
Very easy to lose.
Which I'll never understand. It's because your business has got so much potential, in order to create a legacy, to do really well financially, and sometimes, like egos or even just the financial side where people think, oh, I can cut corners here, but it's like, well, you're going to do far more harm than good and can ruin everything that you've taken a gamble on. I just personally, we don't understand it, but
do things properly. I think that's the key, isn't it? Just do things properly and make sure you kind of constantly aware of what your responsibilities are as a licensee, as a venue owner.
Yeah, no, for sure, mate. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
But where can we find all of your
well, Hare and Hounds website, hareandhoundskingsheath.co.uk, leftfootevents.co.uk. We've got Instagram for both as well. This is Tomorrow, again, that's our kind of live music indie brand on Instagram and on the Hare and Hounds website. So there should be links for everything, but that lists everything we do, really.
Yeah, that's wicked. Really appreciate it. So any, as I said, any subscribe to the YouTube channel, any likes, comments and shares from any of the platforms where we'll be sharing the content on the likes of Instagram and TikTok, greatly appreciated. But make sure if you're in Birmingham, head down to Hare and Hounds. I almost said Kings. Hare and Hounds Kings and check out. But thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.